This envy. Somebody else has it. I want it. Jealous about it. It's eating us up as a country. It says the Chaldeans were sentenced to die for their faith, or their lack of, for their faith to reveal the king's dream. For their inability to reveal the king's dream. Right? They were going to die. He said, kill them all. They can't tell me what my dream is. They can't reveal it to me. They're out of here. They're dead. And here's Daniel and his three buddies that saved him. And how do they repay him? Say, oh, look, we're going to show you these guys ain't worshiping like you said to. They're worshiping their God. They're not worshiping your God or your image. So they're throwing them under the bus. Even though they saved their life. But the emotions of envy and jealousy, covetousness, all those things will consume us if we allow it. We become envious of what others have and we want it. You know, some of the things right now going on is that I can't let my buddy have a bigger house than I do. I can't let them drive a nicer car. I can't let them work harder and have a better job than I do. I've got to, got to have it. You know, we keep moving, we want more. I mean, here's David Letterman, perfect example. All right, a man who's sitting on top of the world, beautiful new wife. Now, I don't know how many he's had, but, you know, a couple of them, a new young'un, got a new child, got all this stuff going on, and what do we find out? We find out he's been having all these adulterous affairs behind the scenes with these workers at his place. And now, here's what happened. This is what's amazing. And this is part of that book this past week, and I gave it to Carl. He's reading it. The late, great United States. We start to, his ratings have gone through the roof. Here's a man that comes out, he's an adulterer. He's cheating on his wife and children with not one woman, but several. And he paints a picture that makes this guy, this coveting, this envious and jealous of what David Letterman has in terms of money. And he says, what? I'm going to embezzle that guy. I'm going to blackmail this guy to keep him quiet. Well, what does he do? He brings it out, and he makes the one guy. We've got an adulterer cheating on his wife and family, and we got another guy over here that's trying to blackmail. And who became the villain? Who's the villain? The blackmailer. David Letterman is made out to be a great guy. We can't wait to watch him and hear his jokes. I'm going to apologize to my wife and family and try to... What is that about? You know, we look at this and we look at how envy and jealousy and wanting more, never being satisfied, drives people to do crazy things. And then we see these guys that were saved by Daniel and his buddies, and now they want him dead. So it says, what a change in Nebuchadnezzar's attitude toward the true God. Some 20 years earlier, he had said to Daniel, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets. And that's chapter 247. And now he says to these guys, who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? I'm the king. I'm Nebuchadnezzar. And at this point we see this rage and this fire burning in Nebuchadnezzar. But soon he's going to find out how strong and powerful he is. He thinks, and this goes back to what Malin said a little bit earlier, he in his mind says, between me and my gods, we are more powerful than this Jehovah God. Isn't that what's going on with Islam? Well, I think, you know, in the end times, we don't really hear about those guys, do we? All right, now, 16 to 23, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. Wow! I love it. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and He will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if He does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. he ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to come and tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Calm and courageous, convicted in their belief of their God. In that verse it says, if, in verse 17, there was not the slightest doubt upon the omnipotence of God. The faith of these 3 guys would not allow it. They believed totally in their God to be an omnipotent God over all things. And it says, second, if in verse 18 makes it clear that there was no questioning God's ability, but rather His will. These 3 men believed that God was able to deliver them, but they took the only proper position, and that is they knew that God could work a miracle, or based on His plan, He could choose not to work a miracle and save them. Either way, they were okay. Whether in life or in death, they knew where they would be. Are we that confident? Are we confident enough to stand up in the culture we live in? Or are we going to stay back, a bunch of meek, little, mild, little hamsters running on a Ferris on a wheel? Or are we going to start to speak out against some of the things that's taking place in our country? These guys said, hey, first, right at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, replied to the king, "Oh, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter." Bold in their faith. It says they believed that God would be vindicated even if they were permitted to die. Though He slay me, yet will I trust Him. Job 13:15. Under no circumstances were they willing to compromise their convictions or be shaken from their loyalty to God. And in these days we're cowards, we compromise. The moral and spiritual courage in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego serves as a great example to us of how we are to live for Christ. Not for one single moment did the 3 faithful Jews doubt the omnipotence of God. It says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." Exodus 24. "I will not fear what man shall do unto me." Hebrews 13:6. "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." 1 Corinthians 15:58. We have our own images that we worship, that we're more attached to than we are to Christ Jesus. We're more fearful of man than we are of God, who has eternity in His hand. And we're not steadfast. We are immovable. We can be moved. We can be persuaded. We're not strong in our convictions. We do not feel that our God is going to be there for us. We see this all the time, and how easily we're swayed from one opinion to the next, tossed about like a ship without a sail. And we have these things going on, and we see this man Nebuchadnezzar with fury. I mean, it talks about his whole face changed. He had given these guys a second chance, didn't he? He said, "Look, if you go ahead now and worship me, worship my image, worship our gods, it's okay. But if you don't, I'm going to throw you in the furnace." Isn't it funny that the folks that threw them in the furnace died?